Welcome, colleagues. My name is Brian Morales. This is the Global Coalition to Address Synthetic Drug Threats, Sub-Working Group 3.2 West. I am going to share my screen so we can get started. And I would like to start off by thanking all of you for your commitment over these past months with the coalition meetings. We've had them every month since October. I'm happy to report we now have over 1,500 representatives in the coalition from governments, and we just added our 156th country yesterday. The Republic of Sudan has also registered a representative, so welcome to our Sudanese colleagues. Now I'm going to also say that we want to welcome a special delegation from the Republic of Guatemala, and I'm going to turn it over to our colleague, Greg D'Alessandro, to introduce them. Greg, over to you.
Gracias, Brian. Buenos días desde la ciudad de Guatemala. Soy Gregorio de Alessandro, de la Oficina de Asuntos Internacionales de Narcóticos y Aplicación de la Ley, Oficina de Programas y Políticas Globales. En esta ocasión me acompañan mis colegas de la Embajada de los Estados Unidos en Guatemala, quienes invitaron a funcionarios del gobierno de Guatemala a unirse con ellos en esta convocatoria del su grupo de trabajo de hoy. Permítanme presentarles a la directora del Programa Nacional de Salud del Ministerio de Salud, Araceli Tellez, y el director de prevención de la Secretaría Ejecutiva de la Comisión contra las Adicciones y el Tráfico Ilícito de Personas, señor Juan Carlos Morales. Bienvenidos a todos. Regresamos contigo, Brian. Gracias.
Okay. Muchas gracias. Gracias por acompañarnos. So let me move on to a few more announcements. Sorry. Okay. So this is a special session. This is our civil society session for the coalition, where we invite presenters from civil society to come and share. And we've got some of the key ones from the viewpoint of INL, at least, with some of the major organizations that work around the world to help address the thematic issue of Sub-Working Group 3.2, engaging people with substance use and substance use disorders. I want to highlight that this session will only have presenters from civil society organizations, but the participants are still from governments and international organizations. And per our usual practice, we will be recording the presentations, but we will not be recording the discussion phase. I also want to share that we are now moving to the next phase of our coalition's work. We, as you know, last month began the implementation phase. And at this point, we are going to request that the participants, the government participants, please report on the actions that you have taken to address synthetic drug threats in your country. So our outreach to you first came through our U.S. embassies to your countries. We have been reaching out through foreign ministries to request this information. Today, we are sharing the reporting process with you in the next few slides. And we will also be sending you a formal official letter requesting the report of your actions. We'll be sending it to the distribution list that you're all a part of. These actions that you share with us will be added to the website, and some content will also be shared in the year one report. So what actions can you report? And I want to highlight that we're looking for the period of July 7th of last year, when the coalition was launched through the ministerial meeting, all the way through September 1st of this year. So it can be looking toward the past, and it could also be forward-looking. We're looking for you to share with us the adoption of any new practice, policy, strategy, regulation, or law at your national level. We're looking for the launching of any new engagement or collaborative opportunity with the private sector. We're looking for any financial support bilaterally, including to international organizations, or in-kind support that your country has provided to build the capacity or advance an initiative to address the synthetic drug threat. We're also looking for any event that you have hosted on a regional or global level in relation to a coalition topic of interest. Also, an expression of interest in any of the initiatives, one or more of the international organization initiatives that are on our website, the 120 plus initiatives that you've been hearing about in the past meetings. And any other act that can strengthen your country's response to synthetic drugs that's consistent with the recommendations would also be welcome. We are asking that the reports be up to 2 pages. In other words, no more than 2 pages in length. We are asking that they be submitted to us in Microsoft Word format or in email so we can easily copy and paste it. We would, of course, prefer for the report to be in English, but we will take any language that for which it's submitted. And we're asking that you please submit these reports to us by the 3rd of June so we have time to edit and incorporate. You can email the submissions to syntheticscoalition@state.gov. And you might ask, well, where are these recommendations that we agreed to last month? They are located in the timeline section in an orange bar that says final key recommendations. We ended up with 68 recommendations following the last subworking group meeting. So that's where you will find that text. And I will end today's session by saying that we are approaching the conclusion of our monthly meetings over the next few months. Our final working group meeting will be in September. Our final sub-working group meeting will be in August. If you are interested to present in an upcoming session of the coalition, please contact us at syntheticscoalition@state.gov, and we will do our best to incorporate you into a future agenda. So with that, I will invite you to send any questions to us in the comments in the chat section, or you can email us at syntheticscoalition@state.gov. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I will turn it over to our co-chairs for Subworking Group 3.2. We have Nicholas Priest and Yuri Kutipe. Over to you both.
Buenos días, Brian. Buenos días con todos los colegas presentes. Sí, el día de hoy vamos a dedicar esta sesión a presentar algunas experiencias muy interesantes desde las universidades, desde el mundo académico, respecto al fortalecimiento de capacidades de la fuerza de trabajo, de los servicios a través de sus profesionales o sus equipos de profesionales y no profesionales que los integran. En primer lugar, tenemos la presentación, ¿no? Del doctor Kevin Mulvey, es director ejecutivo del Consorcio Internacional de Universidades por la Reducción de Demanda de Drogas. El doctor Kevin Mulvey hará una presentación sobre el desarrollo de la fuerza de trabajo en los estudios en adicciones. Doctor Mulvey, lo dejo con el uso de la palabra.
Thank you very much, Yuri. Can everyone hear me okay?
Sí,
Yes, please go ahead.
perfectamente,
Sí,
doctor Mulvey.
gracias. Good afternoon, good morning. And I'm trusting you see my slides at this point. So as Yuri had mentioned, my presentation will be talking about ICUDDR, the International Consortium of Universities for Drug Demand Reduction, specifically with a focus on developing the global workforce. And you'll also hear from two of my colleagues that I work very close with, who will also be focusing on this particular topic. What we do know, and what you likely know because of the work that you've been doing, is that drug treatment and drug prevention, when it's guided by practice that is scientifically sound, have strong and good impacts and outcomes. We have a lot of research in the past 70 years, but one thing that's true is it takes some time, according to the Institute of Medicine, it takes about 12 to 14 years for the science to actually get into the field. What is also important is in terms of drug demand reduction, we're not just talking about the presence or absence of drug use. There are other domains and areas that are affected by substance use. One thing that is very true in many parts of the world, including in the United States, is substance use remains misunderstood, and non-evidence-based best practices still are used and exist in the world. The use of these non-evidence-based best practices is challenging and problematic because it leads patients, families, community leaders, and policymakers to believe that the program isn't working, that whether it's prevention, harm reduction, treatment, or even recovery support, that there's some issues, and therefore they go back to what they know most. And generally, that is non-evidence-based approaches. What we're trying to do here in the ICU DDR is really build this, as we saw in the earlier presentation, a stepping stone to where we improve the workforce. We first identify potential workforces, what I would call pre-service, meaning those at university level, working with students, working with academia, and in-service, which we'll hear about later as well. We provide training through many of the partners that are actually on this call, from Colombo Plan to CCAD to various other organizations, UNODC, et cetera. And clearly, one idea that's necessary in developing that workforce is that there's a credentialing process, a process whereby individuals get trained, practice, so they have a practicum, then they sit for an exam where they can take and demonstrate their knowledge and understanding. And then ultimately, the intent of this whole process is an ongoing professional education component. And you'll hear some more about that as well in the other presentations. Now, it's important to understand that we're not doing this alone, all right? We're not alone. There are, in fact, multiple partners, including everyone on this call in terms of a government or policymaker. Clearly, what we do is we have universities, and I'll tell you a little bit more about our structure in a moment, and our level of participation from those universities. But essentially, we're not the only ones doing this. There, besides governments, there are those international organizations that I mentioned, Colombo Plan, UNODC, WHO, et cetera. We also have, as you'll hear later today, the International Society of Substance Use Professionals, and working with them as well is one of our key partners. There are other civil society organizations such as the Vienna NGO Committee that we work with. And there are other partners in the, what I'll call the family of workforce development, which would include looking at quality assurance and alternatives to incarceration through two other organizations, ICQ and ICADI. So let me just talk a little bit more about the structure of our organization. Essentially, we have presently three particular centers. One that's really focusing on the education, the academic component, which is building faculty skills, but also building and working with those faculty to bring in evidence-based best practices using such things as the universal treatment curriculum, universal prevention curriculum, universal recovery curriculum. They'll soon to be, because of the work of Colombo Plan, the universal nursing curriculum, to work with those institutions in infusing some of this information into their program, or starting up a course, or starting up a diploma, or starting up a certificate, and going on even and working with and establishing master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, as well as PhDs. We also have a small amount of funds in terms of a Center for Research Development, where in the past, what we've done is some small mini grants with some funding from the National Institute of Drug Abuse in order to partner faculty from one university with faculty from other universities, and they work on a particular project. That project is now has been finished, but what's coming out of that project are the publications from those studies and those projects. We also have, and you'll hear this soon from my colleague, the Center for Systems Change, which is often where our other university group, the International Technology Transfer Centers, sits and they are also members of ICU-DDR. In terms of a small staff, in global sense, we have a small office staff. We're spread around the country. In fact, we're spread around the globe with some folks in Lebanon, some folks in Sri Lanka, some other folks in various parts of the United States, as well as in the Philippines. We have also a board of directors and executive committee, that top level line there, but we have representatives from all 6 regions where we work on our board. And you'll recognize some of these folks from your work. So for example, Dr. Hamad is the president of the International Society of Addiction Medicine. Dr. Jalal Tufik is also the president of the International Narcotics Control Board. All of these individuals are associated with the university, and all of them provide within their region and also provide support. But we also have 6 regional coordinators. And in fact, CCAD, which is actually on the call today, Jimena Kowalski and Alfonso Abaca are our Latin American and Caribbean coordinators. Dr. Prapapun is for the Asia Pacific, Dr. Katungu and Dr. Agwogi from Nigeria and Kenya are for the Africa region, which also has sub-regions. Dr. Miofsky from Charles University is the European member, and Dr. Kutsunuk is also a coordinator for the United States and Canada. Our history is relatively new, if you think of things. We started really out in 2016, where Colombo Plan and State Department brought together about 25 faculty members and decided that what was really necessary is that we form an organization to help create in an academic institution a series of programs focusing on addiction studies, focusing on substance use studies. And from that, we went from 2016 to a 401, an NGO of 5013C IRS designation as a charity in 2018. And as I mentioned a moment ago, we're already working in all of the 6 regions of the world. Why are we working there? Well, the purpose was really there's a need and there still is a need to enhance professional workforce in the substance use services, to advance specialized training. Because while I mentioned the universal treatment curriculum as if it was one document, it really has multiple modules. Same with the prevention curriculum. And clearly what we need to do is to have specialized training at an academic institution because it's sustainable. And we're building and growing that workforce, as I mentioned. The other issue was that there had been a lack of, globally, addiction studies programs at a university level. Currently, there are about 445 university members in ICU-DDR, consisting of 715 university faculty that are coming from 92 particular countries. Our mission is basically, as you might have gathered, is to build a global network of universities and colleges to help support and improve professional competencies across the spectrum of substance use disorders, prevention, treatment, harm reduction, recovery, and also to look at applied research and related conditions that might have occurred, such as HIV, hepatitis C, but also co-occurring disorders with behavioral health and mental health issues. The vision and the purpose of us is really trying to have a world, and I think it's true of everybody on this call likely, that we want a world where substance use disorders and their related conditions, that individuals have access to science-informed care. That's really what this slide is talking about, having access to science-informed care. We have, as you might have guessed, 4 goals that go across that spectrum of substance use, that also go across our centers, which is education, research, advocacy. And I'd like to explain advocacy in this sense. It's not advocating policy change at the government level. It might be more actually accessing the leadership of a university where faculty might be interested in having a program of addiction studies, but they need some support to convince their leadership, to convince the dean or the rector. And so we're looking at helping those faculty, again, not imposing, but actually building from within. We also would like folks to be able to come to us for information. We have on our website a whole series of resources that are available. Finally, I'd ask you as members of your country's network that if you could be our ambassador, if you will, to universities or colleges in your country that might have an interest in developing and building on their programs within addiction studies. Membership for us is free. That's the link for membership on this slide. And you have my contact information here. So if you have other questions, please feel free to reach out either through the email of info@icuddr.org. Please visit our website, icuddr.org, and peruse what you'll see. You'll see the list of all the countries and the universities within countries that are presently members. So at this, I will stop. Thank you very much for taking the time, and I hope I provided you with some new knowledge and information. And Yuri, I'm turning it over to you.
Seguro que sí, doctor Mulvey. Muchas gracias por su presentación, ¿no? Y es de resaltar el objetivo, la motivación de el Consorcio Internacional de Universidades para la Reducción de la Demanda de Drogas respecto a promover la educación continua y el acceso a cuidados basados en evidencia desde una red de socios no universitarios, pero también fundamentalmente una red global de universidades y facultades orientadas o que trabajan sobre este tema. Muchas gracias, doctor Mulvey. Seguidamente tendremos la presentación de Joanna Travis, quien es directora ejecutiva de la Sociedad Internacional de Profesionales de Uso de Sustancias, quien también hará una presentación sobre la formación y el soporte del apoyo a la fuerza de trabajo en reducción de la demanda de drogas.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay,
I will
Joanna.
just share my slides.
And we can see your slides. Thank you. You may
I
want to move
hope
them into the presentation mode.
everybody can see those.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you very much for giving us the time to speak to you today. I am Joanna, the Chief Executive of the International Society of Substance Use Professionals. And we are an international network that connects, unites, and shares knowledge with all of our members. We want to make sure that we include prevention, harm reduction, treatment, and recovery support workforce. And our global mission is to make the work of these thousands of members as impactful, accessible, and effective as possible, which we do by making it easier to discover and share evidence-based knowledge, best practice, training, and networking opportunities. So that's our mission. And I think it's always worth defining at the outset of these presentations what we mean by workforce or professionals or community, however we term it when we're talking about it. ISIP considers that to include everybody on the full spectrum who are contributing to drug demand reduction. So that might be family support, it might be volunteers, it might be people that are working in education, healthcare, people that don't necessarily wake up in the morning and think, I work in drug demand reduction. So we want to be incredibly inclusive for those people that are clearly working in this field and those that really contribute but don't necessarily realize that they are part of this workforce. The background to ISUP is that we are funded by the US Department of State's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs. And we came together as there was a discussion with organizations brought together by INL who saw a need for coherence and collaboration in this field. And out of that grew the concept of an umbrella organization that can be there to support the workforce. And we work within a network. Kevin mentioned how closely we work with ICU-DDR and ITTC, and there is a group of organizations that sit within INL's family, if you like, that are undertaking all of these roles in supporting and developing the workforce. So there is training, networking, higher education support, knowledge share, system development, building tools and qualifications to all support the workforce. And you can see here some of those organizations, some are on the call today, and that everybody is taking a part in this. And what is wonderful for ISUP is that we direct our members and people that visit our website or our events to the resources of these organizations. So we do not develop lots of new resources for workforce. We take what is there, the essential work that these organizations are already doing, and we make it accessible and all in one place for those that are interested. We are a membership organization. We have 37,000, well, this was last week, 37,017 members. As you can see here, the distribution between the different regions, we are gradually developing in certain areas of the world. Membership is free and people can come and join, as I said, no matter what their interest level is. We have 4 different membership groups. People who are interested in this area, all the way through to people who are full-time professionals in the field. And one of the things that we really try to do is make sure that the different areas are talking to each other and listening, so that we have research, policy and practice all in the mix, and listening and learning from each other and being informed as they undertake their activities. So you've heard a little bit about the concept. How do we actually achieve this work? So we work in 3 ways: digitally, with our national chapters, and with our events. So first of all, digitally, we have an extensive website which is available in English, Arabic, French, Spanish and Portuguese. We have within that website knowledge share, networks for people to discuss, professional development routes, events and webinars, information about our national chapters, and a profile so that people can show their own professional work, plus all of the information about ISUP. And here are some highlights from that website, so that they're tools that people can come online and make use of. The first one is a knowledge share. So it's got over 5,000 posts covering a full range of themes. And here we get information from our members, but from our researchers as well, so that we have this library, which is building and building, that we can give people access to the information they need on the topic they're interested in. Secondly, we provide access to the online development of the universal curricula. So where there are courses that are self-led or instructor-led and available online, people can get more information and register for those on the ISUP website. We have a journal which is undertaken in collaboration with Charles University in Prague, which really wants to promote the transfer of that research into practice. We try to encourage inputs that are relevant to practitioners and support them in writing articles to be accepted to that journal. So we do a lot of facilitation of that. It's a free journal. There are 4 issues released a year, and we want to really sort of grow that as that supports the workforce around the world. Our newsletter goes out every other week to over 37,000 subscribers, and that has the sort of key highlights of what ISUP is doing and tools and activities that can support the workforce. So our second pillar of work are our national chapters, and they are local host organizations or collaborations of host organizations that undertake ISUP's mission within that local context and need. So we have 37 established national chapters, 6 in progress, and a list of 52 that have expressed interest. So this is really interesting for us to work with those key organizations. You can see here the map of where we are and the list of countries. and to engage with them, and so they can tweak and alter what ISEP is providing based on the needs of their countries. One of the things that our national chapters do is run a course called INEP Plus. So INEP is an introduction to evidence-based prevention, which was developed by Charles University in Prague as part of the adaptation of UPC to EUPC in Europe with EMCDDA. And this is like a beginner's course, and it's available online, but our national chapters support people as they take that training and walk people within their countries through this course to make sure that the knowledge really is developed within their attendees. And the last pillar of our work are our events. So this is where we've been around the world with our annual event, which takes place in person, apart from our 2 lockdown years. And this really gives us the opportunity to provide, again, access for all of the work that our partners are doing to support the workforce. So we run trainings run by different organizations. We have workshops that people want to attend. We have plenary sessions and sub-plenaries. This year we are in Thessaloniki, and that is the 24th to the 28th of June, so not very far away. And you can have a look to get more information on this. These events are free, so we really hope that they can be promoted to the workforce in all of your countries to use as a resource if they can get there, so that they can access all of this fantastic research-based latest developments in this field all in 1 week. We also run online events every week. We have a range of webinars that we run in consultation with partners, with our national chapters or by ourselves. And the areas that we use, that we promote through these webinars are the ones that we hear from our members that they have a need to learn about. So we curate the list of topics that we're going to present on, we identify the best speakers and work so that we're making sure that the information is out there. They're all then available afterwards for free, so people can be there as part of the webinar or watch them back afterwards. So that's a constant top up on knowledge in that area. Just to give you a little snapshot, we did a member survey so that you can get to learn a little bit more about our ISEP members. Of the respondents, most were in that 35 to 44 age group. There's a pretty equal gender split. The respondents came mostly from Pakistan, where we do have many, many members. And you can see that most consider their current profession to be within healthcare, but other is also high. So again, it shows that we don't, this field doesn't all fit necessarily into nice boxes. Some people are across multiple sectors. And the setting that most of them are working in is community. So again, maybe that covers multiple areas. Within prevention, harm reduction, treatment and recovery support, there's a pretty equal split. You can see prevention and treatment are the top there. And the features that they are finding are contributing most to their knowledge are the webinars and the access to training and courses, followed by the knowledge share. You can see here then we asked a series of questions and we repeatedly got this feedback in terms of what the workforce want in their country. Training, training and training. So it was, you know, we asked 3 different ways, but that was the main thing that people said that they wanted support, they wanted access to improve their work. So that was just a little so that you can see sort of voice of the ISEP member. So just for you to think about, these are just some examples of how ISEP can engage in your country. So I think using the ISEP network to put synthetics on the agenda with the workforce, create or collaborate with a national chapter to again connect into that network, host webinars that are sharing particular information that's relevant, collaborate with ISEP on virtual or in-person events, and to make use of our network and connections to support, grow and inform your workforce as well as sharing our resources and opportunities within the networks. So we hope that there's something that you've heard today that might be of use, and ISEP really wants to be that open book that gives the workforce, wherever they are, that access to improve their own practice. So please join ISEP, encourage other people in your networks to do so. These are ways that you can keep in touch with us and keep in touch with me. So again, thank you very much for listening, and I hope that you're seeing something that might be of interest.
Muchas gracias, Joana. Creo que este llamado va a ser muy bien acogido por todos los participantes. Y quiero resaltar esta invocación también que viene desde la Sociedad Internacional de Profesionales en Uso de Sustancias respecto a las comunidades multidisciplinarias, ¿no? Es decir, la necesidad de que desde diferentes ámbitos del conocimiento se aborde justamente el problema de las personas que consumen sustancias. De otro lado, tenemos en tercer lugar la presentación de Laurie Cron, directora del programa, directora de programa del Centro de Colaboración para el avance de los servicios de salud de la Universidad de Missouri. ¿Quién nos hará la presentación sobre el apoyo al cambio de sistemas? Luri, le agradeceré pueda conectarse.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen.
And we can see your screen. Please go ahead.
Oh, great. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to my colleagues, Kevin and Joanna, for their excellent presentations. I am the director of the International Technology Transfer Center Network Coordinating Office, and I will be talking to you today about universities supporting systems change. So an International Technology Transfer Center is a member of the International Consortium of Universities for Drug Demand Reduction that has an enhanced commitment to implementing research-based practices and policies in their country. And you can see our website there on the screen, ittcnetwork.org. We are a part of ICUDDR. ICUDDR is our parent organization. So if you go to the website, you will see that we're actually embedded within the ICUDDR infrastructure. ITTCs are based in universities or research institutes for a number of reasons. First, and importantly, universities tend to be where the expertise is housed. Faculty at universities have spent years developing research portfolios in substance use prevention, treatment, harm reduction, and recovery services, and have faculty who are able to provide subject matter expertise and educate the workforce and others on evidence-based practices and policies. Also, in many cases, a university can be seen as a neutral convener, bringing together people from various sectors and partners from across the continuum of substance use prevention to discuss what is needed in a country. What are the gaps in the system? Where do we need to move forward? And what are the best interventions to do that? So universities often can bring those folks together and facilitate conversations in a way that others have perhaps more difficulty because they're tied to certain political agendas. And having an ITTC at a university also promotes continuity and sustainability. We know that government administrations change, and whenever a government administration changes, oftentimes that means that the people who are participating in ministries, who are working in different levels of government, also change. And this can lead to instability in continuing programs and practices. However, universities tend to stay on the test of time, and so housing an ITTC in a university promotes that sustainability in programming and also institutional knowledge in what has been done in a country regarding drug demand reduction. The purpose of the ITTCs is really threefold. ITTCs accelerate the adoption and implementation of evidence-based and promising addiction treatment and recovery-oriented practices and services. And you can really see that on this graphic here. Our job is to move science into practice and policy. We also heighten the awareness, knowledge, and skills of the workforce that addresses the needs of people with substance use and or other behavioral health disorders. And we have mentioned that other presenters on the call have mentioned that we often collaborate with ISUP chapters, with other members of ICU-DDR in a country to do this kind of capacity building within the workforce.
And Lori, my apologies, interpreters are asking you to slow down a little bit. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. And then the third purpose of the ITTCs is regional and national alliances among culturally diverse practitioners, researchers, policymakers, funders, and the recovery community. This is our model that provides an illustration of what it takes to move science to practice. It's called the continuum of the diffusion of an innovation and shows really how innovations, which in our case is research, standards, evidence-informed policies, become incorporated into regular use. While we understand that this is a continuum, we need to accelerate the speed of diffusion because there is a gap between what is known and what is done. And we call this process of accelerating the diffusion of an innovation technology transfer. And Kevin mentioned this earlier in his presentation, but I really want to highlight it here. ITTCs are needed because even though we know we have effective interventions across the continuum of care for substance use disorders, if those interventions are ineffectively or insufficiently implemented, then we can get inconsistent or poor outcomes that are not sustainable. And the danger here is that when we get poor outcomes because of ineffective implementation, then people tend to think that it's the intervention that didn't work. And we may hear things like, oh, substance use treatment doesn't work, prevention doesn't work, when in fact, it isn't the intervention that isn't working, it's that the intervention was not implemented sufficiently or effectively. And so it's really critical that we have an implementation facilitator like an ITTC who can support the process of implementing an evidence-based practice or policy with fidelity and sustainability over time. So again, technology transfer is the process of accelerating the diffusion of what is known to what is done. So how do we do that? How do ITTCs work? First and foremost, it's important to note that ITTCs employ systems thinking. Systems thinking is a way of approaching problems that asks how various elements within a system, which could be an ecosystem, an organization, or something more dispersed, influence one another. So how those various elements influence one another. Rather than reacting to individual problems that arise, a systems thinker will ask about relationships to other activities within the system and look for patterns over time and seek root causes. You'll see on the slide here that I have cited an article called The Water of Systems Change. In that article, the authors suggest one of the reasons the concept of systems change can be hard to grasp and apply is that it can be hard to understand the system itself. They relate it to a story about a fish. They say a fish is swimming along one day when another fish comes up and says, "Hey, how's the water?" The first fish stares back blankly at the second fish and then says, "What's water?" This just illustrates how difficult it can be to be a systems thinker. And it also underscores the importance of systems thinking in applying it to complex problems. The authors suggest that the first step in seeing the water is to illuminate the systemic forces at play. This requires we go far beyond any simple solutions or funding a specific program and requires that change makers look beyond any single organization to understand the system by identifying all of the actors that touch the issue they seek to address. So in our case, substance use. Problematic substance use. One must go further to explore the relationships among actors, the distribution of power within systems, the institutional norms and constraints within which those actors operate, and the attitudes and assumptions that influence decisions. These are the conditions that significantly impede or enable systemic change. ITTCs also serve as educators and capacity builders. So we develop the workforce through academic programming, and that's why it's important to note that we are all members of ICU-DDR, provide skills coaching, mentoring, and technical assistance, and develop educational products. TTCs also serve as capacity builders, fostering organizational development, supporting the growth of multidisciplinary leaders, and focusing on continuous improvement and sustainable advancements. So how do we develop capacity? We provide training, certainly, and so it's critical what Joanna was saying about the members of ISEP identifying how important training is to meet their needs. But we know from implementation science that training alone is never enough. And so we also look to providing various types of technical assistance to support the implementation of evidence-based practices. The levels of technical assistance that we engage in are basic, targeted, and intensive. ITTCs also serve as strategists and conveners. In this role, it's really important that we go back to thinking about systems change. And so this idea that we are strategists is important because we conduct needs assessments, environmental scans, and really analyze the systems to target interventions to address areas of highest need. And I already talked a few times about the role of ITTCs as conveners. So here's an example of some of the work we do in needs assessments. You will see on the ITTC Network website that a number of ITTCs have created surveys where they display where facilities are throughout their country and map those facilities onto an interactive map online. And that's a really critical step in the work that we do so that we know where the treatment facilities are that we want to work with, for example, and how we can support areas that don't have enough treatment. Every ITTC has an advisory board made up of key partners in the system that all work together to design the strategy for evidence-based practice and policy implementation. I want to highlight the role of the government within the ITTC because it's very important. Of course, governments can provide ITTC's funding, and if you are interested in learning more about how your country can have an ITTC, we would love for you to reach out to us, and we could talk about how some very relatively small funding amounts can really get an ITTC started. Governments can also participate in ITTC advisory boards, collaborating with ITTCs around strategic planning, and importantly, endorsing and supporting ITTC initiatives to bring credibility to our work. Finally, looking to ITTCs as a key resource in your country is critical. We can provide expertise in evidence-based substance use prevention, treatment, and recovery services, and connect governments to people and organizations in their countries providing those services. There are many benefits to a country having an ITTC. Some are listed here. And I know we're getting short on time, so I won't elaborate on all of these things. We do describe some of these on the ITTC website, but I think the most important point is to note that having an ITTC in your country allows your ITTC, your country's ITTC, to become part of a global network of other universities who are working at the systems level to create change in their countries. And so having that opportunity to talk to people about how things are working in their country, to share lessons learned, to have access to kind of behind the scenes resources and support is very advantageous to the success of an ITTC. Right now, we are a small but mighty network. We have ITTCs in several countries across the world, including in Asia, Africa, Europe, and Latin America. And we are launching additional ITTCs this summer. Thank you very much for inviting me to present today. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. And here's my email address if you would like to reach out. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Luri, por la presentación detallada sobre el trabajo del ITTC y resaltar fundamentalmente justamente la promoción de estos centros de análisis estratégico, ¿no? De las políticas y su implementación, ¿no? Con base en universidades en cada país, en la necesidad que hay justamente de dar sostenibilidad a los avances, no solamente de iniciar, sino de dar sostenibilidad a los avances que cada país hace en la atención de las necesidades de las personas que tienen problemas por consumo de sustancias, es muy necesario, ¿no? Tenemos prácticamente 4 minutos. Creo que las exposiciones han sido detalladas, pero hay un momento, podemos tener unos 3 minutos para algunas opiniones o preguntas a los expositores que de repente nos...